The chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure that orbited a dying star. Inside, representatives from 1,000 different worlds sat in their designated seats. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had bodies made of flesh, others of crystal or pure energy. They had all gathered for one purpose, to judge humanity. Hyun-woo stood alone in the center of the circular room. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and his hands trembled slightly as he looked up at the assembled aliens. He had prepared for this moment for 3 years. He had memorized every argument, every piece of evidence that showed humanity had changed, that they deserved a place among the stars. The speaker rose from the highest seat. Its body was made of transparent crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. When it spoke, its voice echoed through translation devices that made it understandable to every species present. "We have reviewed Earth's petition to join the Galactic Council," the speaker said. "We have studied your history. We have examined your culture. We have reached our decision." Hyun-woo felt his heart pounding. This was it. Everything humanity had worked for came down to this moment. "Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council," the speaker continued. "Furthermore, Earth and all human settlements are hereby placed under permanent quarantine. No ship may enter or leave your star system. No communication will be permitted. No trade will be conducted. You are banished from civilized space." The words hit Hyun-woo like physical blows. Not just denied, banished. He struggled to find his voice. "But we've changed," he said. "We unified our entire planet. We ended all wars. We dismantled our weapons of mass destruction. We restored our damaged ecosystems. We colonized Mars and Europa peacefully. What more do you want from us?" A delegate from the Aquarian Collective spoke next. Its body was liquid, contained in a walking tank. "Your history is written in blood? 5,000 years of continuous warfare. You created weapons capable of destroying your own world, and you pointed them at each other. You poisoned your oceans and burned your forests. You enslaved your own kind." "That was our past," Hyun-woo pleaded. "Every species here has a past. You've all had wars. You've all made mistakes. Why are you judging us by standards you don't apply to yourselves?" The speaker's crystal body flashed with red light. "The difference is that we evolved beyond our violent natures. You have merely paused. Our analysis suggests that humanity remains fundamentally aggressive. Your unity is fragile. Your peace is temporary. We cannot risk introducing such instability into the galactic community. How long?" Hyun-woo asked. "How long must we wait?" "The quarantine will be reviewed in 500 years, the speaker said. "If you have demonstrated genuine evolution by then, we will reconsider." 500 years. Hyun-woo knew that effectively meant never. No civilization could maintain perfect behavior for 5 centuries just to please distant judges. "This is unjust," Hyun-woo said quietly. "You're condemning billions of innocent people for the crimes of their ancestors." "Justice is not our concern," the speaker replied. "Stability is. This decision is final. Return to your world. Do not attempt to leave your system. Do not attempt to contact us. Enforcement vessels will ensure compliance." The session ended. Hyun-woo was escorted back to his small ship by silent security drones. As he left the chamber, he saw the other delegates already moving on to their next agenda item. Humanity's judgment had taken less than an hour. They were already forgotten. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Hyun-woo spent most of it in his cabin, staring at the walls. He had failed. He had been humanity's voice, their representative, their hope, and he had failed. When his ship finally approached Earth, he expected to see panic. News of the banishment had reached home hours after the verdict. He expected protests, riots, maybe even violence. Instead, as he descended toward the landing pad in Geneva, everything looked normal. Calm. Dr. Jiwon met him at the airlock. She was the director of the United Earth Space Initiative, a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She smiled as Hyun-woo emerged. Welcome home, Ambassador, she said. I'm sorry, Hien-Wu said. I failed. We're banished. I know, Jawan replied, her smile not fading. I watched the broadcast. You did everything you could? Then why are you smiling? Gyuan gestured for him to follow her. They walked through the facility toward her office. Through the windows, Hien-Wu could see engineers working on new ship designs. Scientists huddled over computer displays. Everything seemed busy, productive, even energetic. Because they've given us exactly what we needed, Jawan said as they entered her office. She pulled up a holographic display showing the Sol system with a glowing red boundary around it. Freedom? Freedom? We're prisoners in our own system. No, Jawan said. We're free from their rules, free from their oversight, free from their expectations. She changed the display to show dozens of research projects. Do you know what the Galactic Council has banned? Advanced artificial intelligence, quantum weapons, genetic modification, autonomous vessels. They've banned anything that might upset their precious stability. Hien-Wu began to understand. And now we can develop whatever we want. Exactly. They think they've punished us, but they've actually removed every limitation they would have placed on us. Yuan pulled up another file. We've been studying the energy signatures their ships leave behind. We're already close to reverse engineering their faster-than-light drives. But we won't just copy them. We'll improve them. They'll detect us if we leave the system. Not if we do it right. Yuan's eyes gleamed. We'll develop drives that leave no trace. We'll build ships they can't detect. We'll colonize worlds they've written off as worthless. And we'll do it all while they congratulate themselves for containing the dangerous humans. Hien-Wu felt something stirring in his chest. Not despair. Not anger. Something else. Hope, maybe. Or determination. How long will this take? He asked. 10 years to develop the technology. 20 to establish our first hidden colonies. 50 to build a real interstellar presence. Yuan smiled. The Council gave us 500 years. We'll only need a fraction of that. And then? And then we'll be so far beyond them that their approval won't matter anymore. Yuan closed the displays. They judged us by our past. They're about to discover what humanity can do when you give us a challenge and leave us alone to solve it. Hien-Wu looked out the window at the blue Earth below. Somewhere up in orbit, Council enforcement vessels were taking up their positions, ready to keep humanity contained. They thought they were jailers. They didn't realize they were giving humanity exactly the motivation it needed. When do we start? He asked. We already have, Jiwan replied. Welcome to the future, Ambassador. It's going to be beautiful. 5 years had passed since the banishment, and Earth had gone completely silent. The Council's monitoring stations detected nothing unusual from the Sol system. No distress signals. No attempts to breach the quarantine. No communications directed outward. The enforcement vessels reported the same thing month after month. The humans were staying in their cage. The Council was satisfied. The dangerous species had been contained. They had more important matters to deal with. Trade disputes. Border disagreements. The normal business of running a galaxy. Earth became a footnote in their records. A minor item checked off a list. They had no idea what was really happening, deep beneath the surface of Mars. In a facility that stretched for kilometers underground, Chief Engineer Minho stood before a massive viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, the first production model of humanity's ghost drive glowed with pale blue light. It looked nothing like the Council's FTL engines, which were bulky and inefficient. This was elegant, compact, and most importantly, completely undetectable. "We're ready for the final test," said Dr. Sumin, the astrophysicist who had led the theoretical research. She was young for such an important role, barely 30, but she had solved equations that the Council's best minds had declared impossible. "And you're certain it won't leave a trace?" Minho asked. "As certain as we can be without a full field test," Sumin replied. "The Council's drives tear a hole in space-time. That's what their sensors detect." Our drive slides through the quantum foam instead. It's like the difference between breaking down a door and picking a lock. Minho nodded. Launch the probe. They had built a small unmanned vessel, barely larger than an old automobile. It contained nothing but sensors, recording equipment, and the ghost drive. If something went wrong, they would lose only the probe and gain valuable data. If it worked, everything would change. The probe activated its drive. One moment it was there, visible through the viewport. The next moment it was gone. Not in a flash of light or a burst of energy. It simply ceased to be in that location. Sum and watched her instruments carefully. No quantum wake. No gravitational distortion. No energy signature above background radiation. She looked up, her eyes wide. It's invisible. 3 hours later, the probe returned, appearing in the exact spot where it had left. Its memory banks were full of data. It had traveled to Alpha Centauri and back, a journey that should have taken years. It had done it in 3 hours, and the Council sensors had detected nothing. Get Captain Yuna, Minho said. It's time for the real test. Captain Yuna had been preparing for this moment since the banishment. She had trained on every simulation, studied every star chart, memorized every Council patrol pattern. She was 35 years old and had never left the Sol system. But she had dreamed of the stars her entire life. Her ship was called the New Horizon, and it was beautiful. Sleek where Council ships were bulky. Efficient where they were wasteful. It could carry 500 colonists in comfort, along with everything they would need to establish a new settlement. And most importantly, it was invisible. Our destination is Kepler 442b, Yuna told her crew as they prepared for departure. The Council surveyed it 70 years ago and classified it as uninhabitable. The planet has aggressive microbial life that attacks any foreign organic matter. They never bothered to look for solutions. We have Dr. Taijin, the ship's chief medical officer and a genius in bioengineering, had developed a treatment that would allow human cells to coexist with the planet's microbes. It had taken 4 years of research, but it worked. What the Council had dismissed as impossible, humanity had solved through simple persistence. The New Horizon departed Mars on a Tuesday morning. There was no ceremony, no fanfare. Secrecy was paramount. Only a few thousand people on Earth even knew the colony program existed. The ship activated its ghost drive and vanished. 40-8 hours later, Yuna stood on the bridge looking at a new world. Kepler 442b hung in the viewport, a blue-green jewel covered in oceans and strange forests. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was home. The landing was perfect. The colonists emerged from the ship, received their treatments from Dr. Taijin, and took their first steps on an alien world. The microbes that should have killed them became harmless within hours. Within days, the colonists were building their first structures. Within weeks, they were planting earth crops modified to thrive in alien soil. And the Council knew nothing about it. Back in the Sol system, the success of the New Horizon triggered an explosion of activity. More ships were built. More colonists were trained. More worlds were selected from the Council's list of worthless planets. The second colony ship went to a moon orbiting a gas giant. The Council had noted the moon's existence but ignored it because it had no atmosphere. Humanity built underground cities there instead, vast complexes carved into the ice, powered by geothermal vents that the Council's quick surveys had missed. The third colony ship settled in an asteroid belt that the Council had dismissed as too unstable for permanent habitation. Humanity built rotating habitats that could move and adapt, turning the chaotic environment into an advantage. Each colony was designed from the beginning to be invisible. No large structures above ground. No broadcasts into space. No energy signatures that couldn't be explained by natural phenomena. Every ship that traveled between colonies used the ghost drive. Every settlement was positioned where Council sensors were least likely to look. Admiral Jihun commanded the growing shadow fleet from his flagship, stationed in the Oort cloud at the edge of the Sol system. He was an old man now, but his mind was sharp. He had been a general during the last of Earth's wars, before the unification. He understood strategy and patience. "We need to establish a principle," he told his staff during a meeting. "We are not conquering. We are not expanding like the Council does. We are surviving and thriving. Every world we settle must be one they abandoned or never wanted. We will not give them any excuse to declare us aggressors." It was a brilliant strategy. The Council had explored millions of star systems and had written off the vast majority as unsuitable for their preferred methods of colonization. They liked Earth-like planets with breathable atmospheres and compatible biospheres. Anything that required adaptation or effort, they ignored. Humanity specialized in adaptation and effort. 20 years after the banishment, humanity had secretly colonized 47 star systems. The total human population living outside Earth had reached 12 million people. They had established farms and factories, schools and hospitals. Children were being born who had never seen Earth, who would grow up under alien suns, and still, the Council suspected nothing. The monitoring stations around Sol reported the same boring data. The enforcement vessels saw no attempts to leave the system. As far as the Council knew, humanity was quietly accepting their punishment, probably arguing among themselves about whose fault it was. In reality, humanity was building an interstellar civilization right under their noses. They were solving problems the Council had given up on. They were thriving in environments the Council considered impossible. They were doing it all without permission, without oversight, without anyone telling them what they could or couldn't do. Dr. G1, now elderly and using a cane to walk, stood in her office on Earth and looked at the star map on her wall. 47 red dots, each representing a human colony. Each one invisible to the Council. Each one proof that humanity didn't need anyone's approval to reach the stars. "They thought they were punishing us," she said to her assistant. "They have no idea what they've created." Her assistant, a young woman named Bora, who had been born the year of the banishment, smiled. "Should we be worried about them finding out?" "Eventually they will," Jawan replied. "But by then it won't matter. We'll be too established, too widespread, too capable. They can't banish us twice. And they can't undo what we've built." She touched one of the red dots on the map. "Kepler 442b, the first colony? Still thriving after 20 years. Captain Yuna had become Governor Yuna, leading a settlement of 20,000 people. They had children who had never known Earth. They had farms producing food in alien soil. They had factories building new ships and new technologies. They had freedom. Real freedom. Not the Council's version, which came with 1,000 rules and restrictions. True freedom to explore, to experiment, to succeed or fail on their own terms. "How many colonies can we support at current growth rates?" Gyuan asked. Her assistant checked her tablet. "Projections suggest we could have 200 established settlements within another 20 years. 500 within 50 years. The limiting factor is people, not resources or technology." Gyuan nodded. The Council had given humanity 500 years to prove themselves worthy. Humanity had decided not to wait for permission. They were building their own future, invisible and unstoppable, and they were just getting started. 100 years had passed since Earth's banishment, and the Galactic Council had nearly forgotten about humanity. The monitoring stations still orbited the Sol system, still sent their reports, but nobody really read them anymore. Earth was a closed case, filed away and forgotten. The Council had bigger problems. The Kreth Dominion, a militant empire from the galaxy's outer rim, had been growing increasingly aggressive. They had been demanding territory, challenging borders, ignoring diplomatic protocols. Trade disputes between the Aquarian Collective and the Silicon Mines threatened to escalate into armed conflict. Pirates were raiding shipping lanes. A plague had broken out on 3 worlds in the Corward sector during a routine council session. Councillor Thexaran, a being made of living metal from the Forge worlds, raised the question of humanity. "It has been 100 years since we banished the humans. Should we not check on their progress?" The speaker's crystal body flickered with dismissive yellow light. "We have more pressing concerns. The humans are contained. They pose no threat. We will review their status as scheduled in 400 years. The motion was tabled without debate. Nobody argued. Nobody cared. The humans were locked away, probably still fighting among themselves, probably still proving that the council had made the right decision. Meanwhile, in an uncharted nebula 3,000 light-years from Earth, Scout Captain Minji was making a discovery that would change everything. Her ship, the Whisper, was one of humanity's newest exploration vessels. Sleek, fast, and completely invisible to council sensors. It had been mapping unexplored regions for 6 months. "Captain, we're detecting a large metallic mass in the dense region of the nebula," her sensor officer reported. "Configuration is consistent with a spacecraft." Minji leaned forward. The nebula was thick enough to hide anything, which is why humanity liked to explore such places. If they were finding a ship here, it probably had an interesting story. "Take us closer, carefully." The Whisper drifted through the glowing gas clouds until the derelict came into view. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of any council vessel Minji had seen. Its hull was scarred and broken, drifting powerless through space, but the design was unmistakable. This was a council warship. "How old is it?" Minji asked. Her science officer ran the analysis. "Based on hull degradation and radioactive decay, approximately 300 years old. This is from the Council's war with the Shatar Coalition." Minji knew about that war. It had been a brief conflict, barely mentioned in Council histories. The Shatar had been defeated and absorbed into the Council. Nobody talked about it much. Ancient history? Life signs? Minji made her decision quickly. Board the vessel. Retrieve the data cores. We might learn something useful about Council technology. 6 hours later, Minji was transmitting her findings back to Earth, directly to Intelligence Director Dongyun. The data cores had contained more than just technical specifications. They contained historical records that the Council had apparently wanted to forget. Dongyun stood in his office deep beneath the streets of Geneva, reading through the recovered files. He was a careful man, patient and thorough. He had spent 40 years in intelligence work, and he knew that the most important discoveries often came from unexpected places. The file he was reading now was marked as classified, sealed by order of the Council Speaker. It detailed the fate of a species called the Velsarum. 250 years before Earth's banishment, the Velsarum had been brought before the Council and judged too aggressive to join civilized space. The parallels to humanity's situation were striking. Same accusations. Same fears. Same verdict. The Velsarum had been banished, just like humanity. A quarantine was established around their home system. The Council had congratulated itself on another threat contained. 50 years later, when the Council sent ships to check on the Velsarum, they found the home system completely empty. Every planet was abandoned. Every space station was gone. The Velsarum had vanished without a trace. The official Council report claimed that the Velsarum had destroyed themselves, proving that the Council's judgment had been correct. They were too violent to survive isolation, but deeper in the classified files, Dongyun found a different story. A dissenting report from a Council scientist who had studied the abandoned systems carefully. The scientist had found evidence that the Velsarum hadn't destroyed themselves. They had left, deliberately, systematically. They had dismantled their civilization and moved it somewhere else. Somewhere the Council couldn't find them. The scientists had theorized that the Velsarum had developed technology beyond the Council's understanding. They had looked at their jailers and decided that the Council was primitive and irrelevant. So they had simply moved beyond the Council's reach and never looked back. The report had been sealed, and the scientist had been reassigned to a remote research station. The Council preferred the story where the dangerous species destroyed itself. It supported their narrative. It justified their policies. Dongyun sat back in his chair and stared at the wall. Humanity had followed the same path as the Velsarum, developing technology the Council couldn't detect, colonizing worlds the Council had ignored. In another 300 years, would Council ships find Earth's solar system empty? Would they tell themselves that humanity had destroyed itself? He scheduled an emergency meeting with President Suyin. 2 weeks later, the Colonial Congress convened in a massive underground chamber on Mars. Representatives from every human settlement attended. Some in person, others via secure holographic link. 123 colonies were now represented. The population living outside Earth had reached 50 million people. President Suyin stood at the podium. A stern woman in her 60s who had spent her entire career managing humanity's secret expansion. We have discovered evidence that we are not the first species the Council has banished. The Velsaram were judged and isolated 250 years ago. They left their home system and vanished. The Council believes they destroyed themselves. We know better. The chamber erupted in discussion. Governor Kyungsu of New Terra, one of the largest and most successful colonies, stood to speak. Then we should reveal ourselves. We should return to the Council and demand recognition as equals. We've proven ourselves worthy. Representative Yunji from the Belt colonies immediately objected. And give up our freedom. The moment we reveal ourselves, the Council will impose their rules on us. Their restrictions. Their oversight. We'll lose everything we've built. The debate raged for hours. Some argued that humanity had a moral obligation to rejoin galactic civilization. Others insisted that isolation was humanity's greatest advantage. Still others suggested a middle path, selective contact with certain Council species while maintaining overall secrecy. Dr. Hana, the head of xenopsychology and one of Earth's leading experts on alien cultures, finally spoke. The question isn't whether we reveal ourselves. The question is when and how. Because we will be discovered eventually. Our expansion cannot remain hidden forever. We need a plan for that moment. What do you suggest? President Suyin asked. We prepare for contact on our terms, Hana replied. We develop a protocol that emphasizes our capabilities, not our needs. When we are discovered, we don't ask for acceptance. We demonstrate that we've moved beyond requiring the Council's approval. We show them that we are equals or better, and we offer cooperation as partners, not supplicants. The proposal was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of hiding forever or revealing themselves prematurely, humanity would prepare for the inevitable encounter. They would continue their expansion, continue their development, but they would also prepare a demonstration of their capabilities that would make their position clear. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would continue on its current path, but resources would be allocated to preparing for the day when they could no longer hide. Dr. Hana immediately began work on what she called the First Contact Protocol. It involved carefully planned demonstrations of human technology, detailed psychological profiles of every Council species to predict their reactions, and prepared responses to every possible Council demand. We will not threaten, Hana explained to her team. But we will make clear that we cannot be threatened. We will not boast. But we will demonstrate capability that speaks for itself. We will be neither aggressive nor submissive. We will simply be present and undeniable. Back on Earth, the elderly Dr. Zhiwan read the reports from the Colonial Congress with satisfaction. She was 97 years old now, confined to a wheelchair, but her mind remained sharp. She had lived to see humanity spread to over 100 worlds. She had lived to see the discovery of the Velsaram precedent. She had lived to see humanity prepare for the day when they would step out of the shadows. We're ready, she said to Haiyan Wu, who had become her closest friend during the long decades since the banishment. He was old too now, his hair white, his movements slow. But his eyes still held the same determination they had shown when he returned from the Council chamber a century ago. Are we? He asked, ready for whatever comes next. We're as ready as we can be, Zhiwan replied. And that's more than the Council expects. Much more than they can handle. The attack came without warning. One moment, the Council border world of Falvanus was peaceful, its 6 million inhabitants going about their daily lives. The next moment, Kreth warships appeared in orbit and began bombardment. The planetary shields held for 17 minutes. Then they failed. Cities burned. Millions died in the first hour. It was the beginning of the worst crisis the Galactic Council had faced in 3 centuries. The Kreth Dominion had been growing more aggressive for decades. But the Council had responded with diplomacy and sanctions. They had believed their economic pressure would force the Kreth to moderate. They had believed their superior numbers would deter any military action. They had been wrong on both counts. Within a week, the Kreth had attacked and conquered 12 Council worlds. Their fleets moved with brutal efficiency, striking systems that the Council's military doctrine said were well defended. The Council's defense fleet, designed primarily for peacekeeping and ceremonial duties, proved completely inadequate against a force designed for actual war. Admiral Ji-hoon watched the unfolding disaster from his flagship. Hidden in a deep space observation post 300 light-years from the nearest Kreth attack. His crew monitored Council communications, tracking every battle, every defeat, every desperate call for help. "The Council is losing," strategic analyst Seojin reported. He was young but brilliant, capable of seeing patterns that others missed. At current rates, the Kreth will control 30% of Council space within 2 years. The Council's command structure is in chaos. They haven't fought a real war in living memory, and it shows. Ji-hoon studied the tactical displays with the practiced eye of someone who had spent 50 years in military service. The Kreth were good, he admitted. Their strategy was sound. They struck at weak points, avoided strong defenses, and moved too quickly for the Council's ponderous military bureaucracy to respond effectively. "What's our obligation here?" asked Commander Woojin, Ji-hoon's second-in-command. "The Council banished us. They made it clear we weren't welcome. Why should we care if they're losing?" It was a fair question, and one that Ji-hoon knew was being asked across every human colony. The reports from Earth indicated heated debates. Many people felt that the Council's suffering was justice, karma coming back to punish those who had punished humanity without cause. "Send a message to Earth," Ji-hoon ordered. "Tell them I'm convening an emergency Colonial Congress session. We need to make a decision before events force it upon us." The Colonial Congress met in an emergency session for the first time in its history. Every representative attended, understanding the weight of the moment. The question was simple but profound. Should humanity intervene? Governor Yaman of Proxima spoke first. He was a hard man, shaped by years of building a colony from nothing in one of the harshest environments humans had ever attempted to settle. "The Council abandoned us. They judged us unworthy. They locked us away like criminals. Now they're losing a war, and suddenly we're supposed to care? I say we let them fall. Let them learn what it means to stand alone." His words resonated with many in the chamber. The bitterness of the banishment still burned, even after 150 years, but Dr. Sumin, now elderly but still sharp, stood to respond. "The Kreth don't care about Council politics. They don't care about old grievances. If they conquer the Council, they won't stop. They'll keep expanding. Eventually, they'll find our colonies. We've stayed hidden from the Council because the Council wasn't looking for us. The Kreth are different. They're explorers and conquerors. Our invisibility won't protect us from systematic expansion." Representative Yoonji added her voice. "We've built something precious out here. Freedom, independence, self-determination. The Kreth Empire doesn't offer those things. They offer subjugation. We can hate the Council and still recognize that the Kreth are worse." The debate continued for hours, but slowly a consensus emerged. Not out of love for the Council, but out of cold strategic calculation. The Kreth posed a real threat to humanity's secret civilization. Better to stop them now, while they were focused on the Council, than to wait until they turned their attention to human space. But there was another element to the discussion, introduced by Ambassador Hyun-woo. He was ancient now, well over 100 years old, kept alive by advanced medical technology that humanity had developed during its isolation. He spoke rarely these days, but when he did, people listened. "We help them not because they deserve it," he said slowly, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "We help them because it's the right thing to do. Because if we abandon our principles when they're inconvenient, we prove the Council correct in their judgment of us. We are better than they believed. Let's prove it. Admiral Jihoon received his orders and began planning immediately. He couldn't commit humanity's entire fleet without exposing the full extent of human expansion. But he could deploy enough ships to make a difference. 30 vessels, each equipped with technology the Council had never seen. Crewed by people who had trained their entire lives for combat they had hoped would never come. The human ships were smaller than Council dreadnoughts. But they were faster, more maneuverable, and carried weapons that the Council had banned centuries ago as too destructive. Kinetic bombardment systems that accelerated projectiles to near-light speed. Quantum disruption fields that could disable entire ships without destroying them. Tactical AI systems that could process battlefield data and respond faster than any organic crew. Most importantly, they had the ghost drive. They could appear anywhere, strike hard, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Captain Yuna, now a fleet commander with 40 years of experience, led one of the strike groups. She had been the captain of the first colony ship, and she had become one of humanity's most respected military leaders. Her crew included Tactical Officer Bora, who had been born on Kepler 442b and had never seen Earth. To her, humanity's hidden colonies were home. The Council was just an abstract concept, but she understood what they were fighting for. The first engagement happened at the Battle of Kelthar, a strategic system that the Kreth were besieging. 3 Council defense platforms were failing against 7 Kreth battlecruisers. The Council had sent reinforcements, but they wouldn't arrive in time. The system would fall within hours. Then 30 human ships decloaked simultaneously, appearing in perfect formation around the Kreth fleet. The Kreth commanders had exactly 3 seconds to wonder what these unknown vessels were before the humans opened fire. Kinetic rounds traveling at 90% of light speed struck Kreth armor. Quantum disruption fields shut down their weapons and shields. Tactical AI systems anticipated their maneuvers and countered them before they could execute. The battle lasted 11 minutes. 5 Kreth ships were destroyed. 2 were disabled and captured. None escaped. The Council defense platforms detected the human ships but couldn't identify them. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. The tactics were unfamiliar. The technology was beyond their understanding. Captain Yuna broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. This is the human defense fleet we've been watching. Consider this a warning to the Kreth Dominion. Withdraw from Council space or face escalation. Then the human ships vanished, using their ghost drives to disappear as suddenly as they had arrived. The message reached the Kreth homeworld and the Council chambers simultaneously. Both reactions were similar: shock, confusion, and disbelief. The humans, the supposedly primitive species locked in their single star system, had just destroyed a Kreth battle group with casual efficiency. Over the next 3 months, human ships appeared at 14 different battle sites. They never fought full engagements. They struck hard, destroyed or disabled key Kreth vessels, and vanished. They turned certain Kreth victories into defeats. They bought time for Council forces to regroup and establish defensive positions. The pattern became clear. Humanity wasn't conquering. They weren't occupying. They were simply preventing the Kreth from winning. They were fighting the minimum war necessary to stop the crisis. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Dreshkal, where the Kreth had committed their flagship and 12 escort vessels to destroy a major Council shipyard. Captain Yuna led the human response personally, taking her ship, the Final Dawn, directly into the heart of the Kreth formation. Tactical Officer Bora coordinated the assault with precision that seemed almost prescient. She had studied Kreth tactics for months, learning to predict their responses, understanding their psychology. When the Kreth flagship tried to target the vulnerable shipyard, Bora had already positioned human ships to intercept. When they attempted to retreat, she had vessels waiting along their escape route. The Kreth flagship was disabled, not destroyed. Its crew was captured, not killed. The message was clear: humanity could have annihilated them, but chose mercy instead. The Kreth admiral, pulled from the wreckage of his command center, asked a question that everyone in the galaxy was wondering: who are you? Yuna, standing in the docking bay as prisoners were processed, smiled slightly. We're the people the council said weren't civilized enough for the stars. We're the people you thought you could ignore. We're humanity, and we're done asking for permission to exist. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Every species, every delegate, every observer who could claim any legitimate reason to attend had packed themselves into the ancient structure. They had come to witness something unprecedented, the return of humanity. Admiral Jihoon's broadcast had been simple and direct. This is the Human Defense Fleet. We have been observing galactic events from beyond the quarantine zone. Recent actions by the Kreth Dominion required our intervention. We are prepared to discuss the new reality with the Galactic Council. The message had sent shockwaves through every civilization. The humans, supposedly locked in their home system, had not only escaped but built a fleet capable of defeating the Kreth. Questions multiplied faster than answers could be formulated. How many ships did they have? Where had they come from? What other capabilities were they hiding? The speaker's crystal form flickered through a dozen colors as it processed the situation. Fear, confusion, anger, and grudging respect all manifested in the shifting light. The quarantine was absolute. No ship could have passed our monitoring stations undetected. How did you accomplish this? We didn't pass your stations, Admiral Jihoon replied, his image transmitted from his flagship. We went around them, through them, and beyond them using technology you didn't know existed. Your monitoring was searching for Council-style F-tail signatures. We developed something different. Counselor Thexaron slammed a metallic appendage on his podium. You violated the terms of your banishment. You developed forbidden weapons. You established colonies without authorization. These are serious violations of Council law. Council law applies to Council members, President Suyin interjected smoothly. She appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber, projected from Earth. She looked calm, confident, utterly unintimidated by the assembled power of 1,000 civilizations. We are not members. You made that very clear 150 years ago. We have been operating outside your jurisdiction ever since. You cannot simply ignore the Council's authority, the speaker protested. We haven't ignored it, Suyin replied. We've operated beyond its reach. There's a difference. You told us we couldn't join your community. You didn't grant us permission to build our own. The chamber erupted in debate. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Some demanded immediate military action against humanity. Others called for negotiation. Still, others simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. The speaker called for order, its crystal body flashing red with authority. The Council demands immediate inspection of all human vessels and settlements. You will submit to complete disarmament under Council supervision. You will relocate all unauthorized colonies to approved settlement zones. You will submit to a period of supervised integration into galactic society. President Suyin smiled. It was not a warm smile. No, the simple word silenced the chamber more effectively than any gavel. We are not here to submit, Suyin continued. We are here to negotiate as equals. We seek no permission for our colonies. We require no approval for our technology. We are offering cooperation and alliance on terms of mutual respect. Nothing more. Nothing less. Impossible, Thexaron declared. The Council cannot simply accept your unauthorized expansion. It would set a dangerous precedent. The precedent was set 150 years ago when you banished us, Suyin countered. You removed us from your system of rules and authority. You cannot now claim jurisdiction over what we built in exile. Chief Engineer Minho, now serving as humanity's technology representative, decided it was time for the demonstration they had carefully prepared. Perhaps we should clarify the current situation. I'm transmitting coordinates now. 50 sets of spatial coordinates appeared on every delegate's display. The speaker studied them briefly. These systems are on our charts as uninhabited. Most are classified as unsuitable for colonization. Correct, Minho replied. They were unsuitable for your methods of colonization. We found them perfectly adequate for ours. I'm now activating visible spectrum signatures on our settlements. Across the galaxy, 50 human colonies simultaneously activated powerful lights and transmitters. Orbital stations became visible. Surface cities revealed themselves. Agricultural platforms emerged from camouflage. Each coordinate that had shown as empty now revealed a thriving human settlement. Some with populations in the millions. The council chamber fell silent. The scope of human expansion was staggering. 50 colonies, each one built on worlds the council had dismissed as worthless. Hundreds of millions of humans living outside their supposed prison. This is only a fraction of our settlements, Minho added quietly. We're showing you these to demonstrate our presence, not to provide a complete census. The full extent of human colonization remains our information to share or withhold as we choose. You're threatening us, the speaker said. No, Suyin corrected. We're establishing context. Threats are unnecessary between equals. We saved your civilization from the Kreth. We could have let you fall and expanded into the vacuum of your collapse. We chose not to. That should indicate our intentions are not hostile. Minho continued the demonstration. Furthermore, we have complete technical data on your defensive networks. Not because we've attacked them, but because we've studied them while passing through undetected for decades. He transmitted a detailed schematic of the speaker's own homeworld's orbital defense system, down to individual weapons platforms and power nodes. We could have bypassed or disabled these systems at any point. We didn't. Again, this should indicate our actual intentions. The message was clear and carefully calibrated. Humanity was demonstrating overwhelming capability without making explicit threats. They were showing what they could have done, not what they planned to do. It was a masterclass in diplomatic pressure. An older delegate from the Aquarian Collective spoke for the first time. Their liquid form rippled thoughtfully in its containment tank. What exactly are you proposing, President Suyin? A treaty of mutual recognition, Suyin replied. The Council acknowledges human sovereignty over our existing settlements. We acknowledge Council authority in their space. We establish mutual defense agreements. We share certain technologies on agreed terms. We trade as equals. We maintain separate civilizations that cooperate. Where interests align, you want independence and alliance. Simultaneously, the Aquarian observed. Yes, just as you maintain independence from each other while participating in the Council. We're proposing a similar arrangement. We don't seek to join the Council as subordinate members. We seek to work alongside the Council as an independent civilization. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Some delegates argued that humanity's demands were outrageous, that their violations couldn't be overlooked. Others pointed out that humanity had already demonstrated the capability to ignore Council authority completely. The choice wasn't between accepting human terms or enforcing Council will. It was between negotiation or irrelevance. The Aquarian delegate, who had become an unofficial mediator, summarized the situation bluntly. They don't need our permission. They don't need our resources. They don't need our technology. They're offering cooperation because it serves mutual interests, not because they require our approval. We can accept this reality or pretend it doesn't exist. Only one of those options is rational. The Treaty of New Beginnings was ratified on the 4th day. Humanity maintained independence and sovereignty over all existing colonies. Human ships could travel freely through Council space. Human citizens could trade and interact with Council species. In exchange, humanity agreed to mutual defense pacts and committed to sharing certain non-military technologies, particularly medical advances that humanity had developed during isolation. Most importantly, the treaty included a formal acknowledgement that humanity's banishment had been an error in judgment. It was as close to an apology as the Council's pride would allow. Ambassador Hyun Woo, who had been brought to the chamber to witness the treaty signing, wept quietly. He was 162 years old, kept alive by medical technology that hadn't existed when he had stood in this same chamber and heard humanity condemned. He had lived to see vindication. You were right, Sui said to him privately after the ceremony. They gave us exactly what we needed: freedom, time, motivation. We became what we needed to be because they forced us to do it alone. 50 years after the treaty, humanity had become one of the galaxy's quiet powers. They didn't dominate galactic politics. They didn't demand tribute or territory. They simply existed as a civilization that could solve problems others couldn't. When medical plagues struck, human bioengineers found cures. When engineering challenges seemed impossible, human designers found solutions. When diplomatic crises threatened war, human mediators found compromise. They had become indispensable not through force but through capability. Fleet Admiral Yuna, now in her 90s, stood on the observation deck of the flagship unbowed, watching a joint council human fleet conduct training exercises. Beside her stood Ensign Doyun, a young man who had been born on a colony world and was experiencing his first tour in the Admiralty.